It's such a delight to be here on our anniversary, our 25th anniversary. I'm James Bazagian. I'm the mayor. I'm also president of the Calabasas Las Virgenes Historical Society, which is co-sponsoring this event. I'm going to introduce our panel today to discuss the first 25 years of Calabasas. Dennis Washburn served on the city council from 1991 until 2011. 20 years, served as mayor 4 times and served 5 terms, and was one of the city's founders, long involved in regional activities prior to incorporation, still involved. He's on the planning commission now. He tells me he has to go to a planning commission meeting later tonight, but hopefully he'll stay with us as long as he can. Dennis is a friend of mine, a good friend of mine. We served together for 14 years. We overlapped, and he was our first mayor, so he's over there. Next, we have Ellen Pengar Leodis. Ellen has done everything but serve on the city council. She served on the library commission. She was a founding commission member of the library commission. She served on the Parks and Recreation Commission and was involved in many of the early successes of that commission in creating parks and recreational services for the city. Ellen also helped establish the Calabasas Municipal Library. She was instrumental in helping to establish it as an independent library, which I'm sure she'll discuss later on, her experiences in doing that. And she's one of the better known commentators on our election programming and moderators of candidates, forums, et cetera. She's got some stories about that too. So welcome, Ellen, to the show.
Thank you.
Karen Foley. My friend and mentor, Karen Foley, served on the city council from 1991 to 1997, 2 terms. She served 1 term as mayor, and she is literally my mentor. I ran for her seat when it was an open seat, and am now serving in that seat still. So I always rely on her for counsel and advice, and to tell you the truth, whether I relied on her advice or not, I would get it. So I may as well just accept that I'm getting it for as long as I'm on the council.
Relax and enjoy it.
Karen remained very active after her leaving the council in 1997. She is very involved in the Arts and Public Places program. She's very involved in the Friends of the Library. She served as my library commissioner for several years, and she was involved in some of the chamber orchestra when we had it. And so Karen's maintained an active presence around the city, and she too was involved in the incorporation drive. So welcome to our panel. I'm going to get right to some of the questions. The city of Calabasas was formally incorporated on April 5th, 1991. What were the major reasons why local residents sought to secede from the County of Los Angeles in order to form an independent city? And what were the major steps we had to take to make the dream of incorporation a reality?
Nice, brief question to answer. I'll hold something up instead. This is one of the original brochures for the Rancho Las Virgenes Incorporation Drive. It started in 1978, and by the time we got to 1980 and the Board of Supervisors of Los Angeles County changed, and our supervisor, Mike Antonovich, who was our, at that time, 5th district supervisor, was instrumental in making sure this didn't happen. So this was a brochure that says why we did this. Mighty oaks from tiny acorns grow. If you think about it, oaks have always been important to the people out here. Oaks have been significant to our environmental health, and oaks have been essentially a symbol of the solidarity of the community that's out here in the Santa Monica Mountains. This brochure was the first incorporation proposal from the community that would have included everything from Westlake Village to Calabasas and everything from the Ventura County line essentially to Montanito. Very interesting thing. It would have been probably 44 square miles. But the reason that we wanted to incorporate is because every time you wanted to have a permit, every time you wanted to actually get anything done in the community, every time you wanted to know what budget was available to you to have, provide for community services, you had to go 30 miles downtown each way and wait in line with all the other 9 million people of LA County to try to get the attention of the supervisors. So we all thought, why can't we run our own government? And there was a state law that's set up in order to do that very thing, which is whenever some place gets urbanized sufficiently to be able to self-sustain, the people can, in fact, petition to draw a map, get a petition with signatures on it and have folks essentially determine whether they should be allowed to self-govern, and then get the money that comes from being self-governing, which is the really critical part. And it's always a budget search, and budget is money with intent. Intent is always vision with implementation. So if you think about it, unless we could actually get charge of our own fate, we wind up essentially being prisoner to this is a copy of the Los Angeles County budget from 1987.
How many pages is
1988. Well, I mean, it's beyond
that? Yeah, you're not going to read it all, are you?
I just brought it to show you that's what we faced. And we were essentially touched by about 3 pages of this budget. And almost all 3 of those pages were in the hands of the supervisors, doling out whatever they wished to give us. So we had no parks, we had no public services close by, all that other stuff. So this all came to really pass by saying, let's govern ourselves.
Ellen, give me some of your reasons why you think incorporation was necessary.
Well,
because you're a long time. When did you move to Calabasas?
It'll be 43 years in June.
Okay.
And when we moved here, there was no off-ramp at our house. We live off of Lost Hills Road, the west end of town. Where we lived was an unincorporated area of Agora, and on the maps, it said we were in the sphere of influence of both Calabasas and Agora. At that time, and we'll get into this later, I'm sure, we were talking about, should we affiliate ourselves with Agora, or should we affiliate ourselves with Calabasas? And the council in Agora was so rambunctious, screaming and yelling at each other at meetings, trying to tear the city down instead of building it up, that we said, if we go to the sphere in Calabasas, at least we'll start off with a clean slate, and we won't get this kind of craziness in Calabasas.
A little did you know, right?
Exactly. I'm just saying at the time. And so that's how we became involved in
Karen?
cityhood.
Well, that's a little less emotional than my own involvement and the people I knew. I felt that our home, our community, was being taken away from us. We had no say. My children were thrown off the green belts because someone decided to interpret it as passive green belts. There was no place for my children to sign up for local sports or activities. The park company told me point blank when I was president of CPHA, either you take over the lake, Foley, or we're going to build houses on it. So we had a quick whip up the CPHA over 3 years to make it mandatory to take over the lake so that we could have control over the lake. And then development was taking place that we had no input. Or if we did, they listened without response and voted without our consent, without our input, without caring about our concerns. And we said to ourselves, if we're going to live here, we, the community, need to grasp this community and run it ourselves. And that's why we fought so long and hard. And I guess the emotional response was there because overwhelmingly, the votes came in with such a high record percentage of people who voted, and they voted overwhelmingly to grasp control of their own destiny. And they had their city in their own hands, and that meant a tremendous amount to all of us.
So Karen, the first election for city council took place on March 5th of 1991, concurrent with the incorporation vote. What was it like to run in the first municipal election cycle in Calabasas history, or in Ellen, your case, to participate at the active political activist level?
Well, I wasn't as self-confident as some of the others were. But what I found absolutely amazing which helped me continue a very difficult path, which is putting yourself in front of everybody and asking for their money, for their support, for their vote, for their confidence, was the fact that people trusted us. They literally put their financial future of their home in our hands and listened to us, believed in us, and in the case of Dennis and me, and three of the others, believed in us enough to have chosen us to act in their stead in behalf of the entire city. And that, to me, took quite a leap of faith on many people's part. And through all of the years that all of us ran and were on the council and participated in cityhood, we all kept saying, you gave me your confidence, I'm going to give you my respect and do the right thing by you. And I think it worked out quite well.
So
And
Ellen,
I'm very grateful for all of that.
you've never missed an election.
Correct.
So tell us about the first one.
The first one. There were 13 people running for the 5 council seats. We had the very first election as a candidates forum at A.E. Wright Middle School in their multi-purpose room. Now, what you need to know for the purposes of this story, which is kind of a side story and a giggle, is there's a semicircular driveway in front of it. The sheriff had taken traffic cones and put them there because they didn't want anybody to park in front of the building. The place was absolutely packed. I was there as a representative of the League of Women Voters to moderate the forum. All the candidates were up on stage. There was a lectern for me to stand at and ask the questions. We had just gotten to either the second or the third speaker when a sheriff came right up to the front and handed me a piece of paper. And of course, all eyes were on the sheriff because what could be going on? Apparently, as soon as everybody had crowded in there, they had removed the traffic cones, and one person had pulled their car up, seeing that there was a wonderful space right in front. Well, the sheriff didn't want anybody there, handed me the note, and he said, you need to read this right now. I look down at the paper, and I say, will the person with the license plate BRDLEGS please move your car from the front of the multi-purpose room? Everybody started saying, bird legs, and a lady in the back got up, had her suit jacket over her head, and walked out. Everybody on the stage, it was like an icebreaker. From that point on, everybody on the stage was very relaxed and gave their speeches, but it was a wild way to start the first one.
Dennis,
What was the question?
what was it like to run?
No,
Yeah.
I'm teasing. It was essentially a culmination of so many years of activity. I mean, literally starting in 1978, and then again with our own Incorporation drive in 85, 83 to 85, and until 88 when we, were turned down the first time. That's a lot of years. And then from 88 to 91, that's another 3 years. Just focusing for that much time is really difficult. So by the time I got there, everybody knew who the heck we were because we've been trying so often to get this idea of cityhood across. We literally were able to write the story, why Calabasas cityhood. And again, it was like the earlier one with a map in it and the story. And those of us who were running for city council had views on what the stories were. Those of us who had been fighting for all these years wanted to make sure that we didn't lose this final chance. There was a lot of emotional pressure to make this thing work internally from each of us. And I can't tell you how many meetings we had, as an incorporation committee, as friends, as advocates for the incorporation.
Practically every night and day.
It was constant. And we all had jobs, on top of that. And our wives or husbands, had kids that went to school and everything else. So ultimately, we said, if we can make this work this time, then it'll be easier. Or so we thought. So having run for office, I'd been in the public eye for so many times, whether it was downtown at the supervisors' hearings or the Planning Commission of LA County or the LAFCO hearings, which were constant, and our own rallies essentially here. We knew our people, and they knew us, and that's why I think they gave us the faith that they did. And they did the right thing. They voted for cityhood. They voted to establish a budget. They said, here are the boundaries we want to live within, and here's the money we think we can earn, and here's how we're going to manage that money on your behalf. I guess the most believable of us in this trust were the ones that I think ultimately got elected. Doesn't mean that there were a lot of really good candidates, and they all worked for this, but ultimately it was a culmination of all the activity. And you can see from some of the pictures in the back of the room, and some of this will be on exhibit, all of us got
Thank you for those, by the way. I know a lot of them are yours
a
from
great
your
deal of
private
emotional
collection.
relief, laughs and smiles and tears and everything else that went along with,
And a lot of teamwork,
and all of that.
constant teamwork.
Let me ask this question, because a lot of people probably are unfamiliar with the process. Incorporation of a city is not a common everyday thing. In California, less than one a year on average is incorporated now. So a city gets incorporated like Calabasas. What were some of the things the city council had to do right away to establish the infrastructure of city government?
Well, if you think about it, so you're a city, because LAFCO and the Board of Supervisors certifies your election, and they say, okay, it's yours now. What are you going to do about it? We first had to say, how much money can we get that we're entitled to? As it turns out, the day after the election, which is March 6th, or 5th, March 6th, our interim city manager, which we had already set in place, was off to Sacramento, and he was able to lobby for and get $346,000 of state subventions, which are per capita fees from all kinds of stuff in California. And he came back with a check for $346,000 to get us started, and he got us entitled to the property tax share that we were entitled to, even though it was chintzy. It was only about 3.4% of the property tax that our community generated. But he literally came back with a promise to give us another $538,000. So, by March 9th, we had a bank account. So where we didn't have a pencil, we didn't have an office, we didn't have people. It was just us, council members, literally running the city. We hired somebody. Ed Crines was our first city manager for 6 months, and we had a city attorney that we had worked with to incorporate. We said, you're a man, you're our attorney. So we had management, we had law, and we had energy and experience on our side. And we just started saying, this is the time to consolidate what we're entitled to, and then tell our voters that we're entitled to this, and here are the things we want to do. Protect our oaks, deal with our view sheds, make sure that our schools and our parklands, which were almost non-existent, and our open space and the place we live is at least in our charge.
Ellen?
Well, I wasn't involved in that part of it, but I will say that one of the things that I think was very important to the people, every single candidate who was running and those who ultimately got on the council, the most aggravating thing to them was when the county permitted the ridge line at Parkway Calabasas to be developed into houses. And I think that was part of the impetus that put us over the top.
Karen?
Several things really amazed me. One was a homeowner, developer who was having problems with their homeowners association and wouldn't reconcile with them and came to the city to build more and to improve and just add things on. And we said, and I suggested that perhaps maybe nothing should be done until there's a rapport till there's peace between the homeowners in that development and the developers. Immediately, the developer said to himself, well, if I want to do anything, I'm dealing with the city now, I better get my act together, and came to an agreement with, it was the Luscombes. And how programs started. I said to the, gee, I ran on a Parks and Rec ticket, how can we do something this summer? And they said, too soon, too soon. But yet we ventured out and we hired somebody to do 2 or 3 programs and started the recreation department within a month or so. Right. And the classes, the activities were immediately filled. And then came along 4th of July, and well, it didn't have room or didn't have the money for fireworks, couldn't figure that one out. So we had a laser show at the Tennyson Swim Center, and it was packed. People foregone. They went to forget the fireworks. We're going to do something in our new city. And then
it was pretty creative,
it
too.
Was,
yeah.
Yes,
it was a great show.
And then I remember being at a Contract Cities, our very first Contract City seminar in the desert. Dennis and I were sitting at one of the seminars. After the seminar, Dennis turns around and says to me very prophetically, Foley, would you like a library? Well, yes, I would love a library. We went up, we spoke to the county people. Before you knew it, we had a bookmobile. And the public loved it. They were thrilled with our city. They felt exactly what I know all of us were striving for, which was a sense of community.
So, Ellen, looking back, and with the benefit of hindsight, are there any regrets or events you wished had unfolded differently?
Probably a few different people on the council who were a tad obstructive, but other than that, I think that
I hope that's present company excluded.
that goes without saying. But I think that, for the most part, every single one of the dreams that the original council had came to fruition.
Karen?
Well, I'm going to cop to the words by Edith Piaf. Ne regrette rien. Je ne regrette rien. No, I don't regret anything. Anything that went amiss, we all learned from. Yep. And we didn't repeat a mistake. All that went well, we built on. We had the finest set of commissioners and committee we could have ever envisioned. We had a great staff, and those were the halcyon years. Those were the honeymoon years. We had the support of the entire community.
Dennis? Am I going to get one juicy story out of this question?
What I'm going to tell you is that, if you, the Calabasas public, would like to know a little bit more about the intimate details of the inner workings of the council and staff and the significant volunteers that serve on our commissions and committees, you're going to have to talk to James. He's documented most of this stuff. There's a couple of hints at it in the 25th anniversary book.
The book here.
In the very back, after everybody had looked at all the good stuff, you're going to have to read some of the anecdotes as well.
Well, let me get to one of those anecdotes, because that's one of my next questions that's related. Now listen to the whole question first. Now, historically, the Calabasas City Council has been infamous for what we will politely refer to as the rancorous level of debate between its members. At times, the council has actually hired a psychologist to facilitate internal disputes. To what do you attribute these problems over the years? Is it normal for any council?
Yes,
or?
I think
I can
so.
tell you that, having been involved with the League of California Cities and the Contract Cities Association of California, you find that every city council has someone or more than one individual that has a very different view of how, either democracy or republican or representative government works. And they aren't always, in line with the conventional wisdom, and they aren't always filled with wisdom, they are often filled with either vitriol or chicanery. So there are opportunities to really lead people astray and afoul. And it's the job of the whole council, to figure out how to keep the progressive values and attitudes of the community going, despite the personality issues that always show up in every committee. I mean, everybody here is in a committee or, a group of some kind. Whenever you give people authority, you never know what they're going to do with it. So in the end, you learn as you go, and you make light of the, and many people do make light of the fact that we hired a counselor, essentially, who actually brought a second counselor along during the sessions that we had. The reason that all happened in large part was because we couldn't agree on the approach to dealing with the acquisition of Amundsen Ranch, which was a 5,500-acre parcel in Ventura County that would have virtually destroyed the city of Calabasas and really the West Valley, as far as I'm concerned. So how to deal with that kind of a threat when we're a little teeny city, and that was a $5 billion development with 44 million cubic yards worth of earth movement and a stadium golf course and 400,000 square feet of whatever, All right. So we disagree, on the council as to how this should be pursued or not. And it creates a lot of rancor on the city council, and it's serious business. You can make light of the fact that we had to have outside help, but that we were wise enough to actually get outside help, despite the fact that it was characterized as, dealing with a bunch of spoiled brats that don't know how to run a city. We persevered.
We were spoiled brats.
We went through it.
Well,
we had our share of spoiled brats as well.
Karen, the council went over time, by my count, through 4 psychologists.
I'm sorry?
I think we went through 4 psychologists by my count. You went to one, and
Yes.
then when I got on the council, there were 3 more. So tell us about your perspective on that.
I think it's very normal and very understandable. You have 5 people. Each one is a chief. None of them are followers. All of them know more than the other 4. They all know what's right. They all know what's best, and they ain't gonna give in an inch. And you have 5 people like that, and it takes a lot on a council and a marriage to learn how to compromise, to learn how to respect someone else's opinion, how to build consensus, and to be smart enough to know how to get your point across, and to earn the respect when of your other council people who want to please you and go along with your way. It was give and take all the way. Hard to do, but you can't let the ego stand in the way of the goal, and that was hard.
I'm going to add something, not to step on your lines at all, but if you want to know what the story was that drove a lot of this, it had to do with whether we were going to put a metal detector at the front door and the back door of the City Hall on Moreau and Las Virgenes Road to see if any one of the council members was carrying. So he'll tell you that story, not tonight.
Yeah, that'll be, I have what's called posthumous papers. When I go, the whole story will be laid out. For now, that larger book over there, the one that's 8.5 by 11, that has some of the juicy stuff, but not all of it.
Just like the Nixon tapes?
Okay, so let me just so the audience knows, when I say psychologist, taxpayer money is being used, so it has to, the group therapy is open to the public. So we had our sessions with the public there, and it was interesting. We had an audience for our therapy. And one of my biggest recollections is sitting in the community center with all of us on couches. It was like a real full-on stereotypical psychologist. And in the front row watching us was Ellen Pengar Leodis knitting and shaking her head.
Knitting up
So
flowers?
Ellen,
Wait a minute.
what was it like to watch a psychological group therapy session with the city council?
It was very interesting and informative, but the bottom line was that you knew which ones were crazy, and you wanted to see how crazy they were going to manifest themselves in front of the psychologist. So it was really worthwhile to attend.
So, leaving that subject, we'll go on to a more positive note. The Calabasas Civic Center, where we're now at, is considered one of the city's crown jewels. Can you give us a little history behind the establishment of this beautiful civic center, which includes Calabasas City Hall, the Calabasas Municipal Library, and the future Calabasas Senior Center? I'm going to first turn to Ellen, who was very actively involved in the establishment of the Calabasas Municipal Library. Ellen, you can focus on whatever parts of that question you want to focus on.
Sure. As Karen was telling you, we started out with a county bookmobile. The county bookmobile, when it came to Calabasas, we had it 2 days a week, and we had to give the county the amount of money that they had figured out on a pro rata basis per person in the city, with a wonderful combination of percentages versus numbers of people and whatever. What you need to know about the county system is that every city that has a library in the county system puts all the money in according to this particular rate, but they only get services back which are meted out with all of the money going into one pot and every library getting the same amount of money. So the next thing we did after we had the bookmobile was we talked the county into giving us a 300 square foot space in the Muro Road building. The space was so small that there was a couch in there and a circulation desk and bookshelves. And if 2 people were in there with the county librarian, you had to wait outside till they finished before you could go into the library to take a book out. And from there, it moved to a 1,200 square foot space in what is now the courtyard at the Commons. And then it moved to the Muro Road building when the city took over the bottom floor. Part of it was allocated to the library, and we went from 300 square feet in the Muro Road building to 1,200 square feet at the courtyard at the Commons to 4,000 square feet in the Muro Road building. And from there, across the street from this library now, we got up to 7,000 square feet of library space. In the meantime, when we went from the 300 square feet to the 1,200 square feet, there was a person in the city who appeared at every city council meeting and said the following: "My name is Ellen Pengar Leodis," and I gave my address, and I then said, "We are putting $631,000 a year into the county library system, and we are getting $252,000 worth of service back." Now, we all know that Calabasas has the reputation of being an upscale city, so I was perfectly comfortable saying, and if you gave your financial analyst $631,000 one June, and the following June he said, "Guess what? It's $252,000 now," you would not keep that financial analyst. We need our own library. And at the same time that I was doing this, over a 2-year period, one of our elected officials, his name was Montjoy, put forth legislation that permitted cities that had enough money to get out of the system. And I'm proud to say that Calabasas was the very first city to get out of the system because of that legislation.
Karen?
I remember I was one of the people who was very hesitant about doing that. I'm very conservative, and I had a great deal of loyalty to, believe it or not, from the people in the county who did the library. I mean, I love books, anybody associated with books. So I was, why, if it's not broken, why go out and try and fix it? Then Ellen said to me, "Go check out the collection." I saw duplicates of books, triplicate copies of books that weren't bestsellers or not classic, were just ordinary books that I came back to see a week or 2 later, and they were in the same position, not being checked out. I saw shelf after shelf of cookbooks. And even though I'm a Luddite, I know that the real people out there who are with today's technology don't go and look at cookbooks. They may collect them, but they'll just run it off on the computer. So why were we dedicating needed shelf space to the same old cookbooks from 10 and 20 years ago even? And I figured, well, I don't like being exploited, and that's not the word I use, but I will use it because I'm a lady. We were being exploited. We were being taken advantage of because we were a successful city who had funds. And why should we be exploited and pass on this terrible legacy of inferior service to the public? That's not why they elected us to office. So when people were afraid once more, do we vote for this? Do we want this? Absolutely. And when they went to see for themselves, they were behind us 100%.
Dennis, tell us about the establishment of the Civic Center, because I know you were on the Civic Center task force for many years.
Let me just put a footnote to what is being discussed here, though. The move to leave the county library system, when we tallied up everything the day before we had to, pay for this place, the library we're in tonight, we had amassed, in not giving money to LA County and providing all the service that Ellen is describing, we had over $6.2 million that were in our bank instead of in the county's coffers. And James was very significant, along with everybody else here, in getting an $8.2 million library grant out of Prop 14, I think it was called.
Yes,
and that
one time only.
We had to try that twice. And
Twice.
We succeeded, we invested. We opened this place up virtually free because that money from having abandoned the LA County library system and having been smart enough and prepared enough to get the library grant money, this beautiful building that we're enjoying so well in these days, is virtually at the cleverness of the council and the library commission and at the benefit of the community of Calabasas. But in terms of this place,
Just a minute, I need to interfere.
okay,
When I was coming before the council, I kept saying how much money could be
you
saved.
bet, it's huge.
And at the very end, I said, if we started saving now, within 3 years, we would have a minimum of $1 million. And that would be in our pocket. And one of the council members said, if we don't have it, will you make up the difference? I said, no. Dennis.
Another nice anecdote. Well, the complex that we're in right now, which includes an amphitheater, which is lovely as well, and is going to include, and we're celebrating on June 22nd, 3rd, and 4th,
Fourth
the
and
opening
sixth.
of
Fourth, fifth,
our
sixth.
Civic Center. If I didn't say it right, James
Senior.
did. Well, the senior center.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is the first gold LEEDs, that's Leadership and Energy and Environmental Design building. We were actually striving for platinum, but we wanted to have a place where our people could meet, our staff could work, people were going to remain and be healthy because they're in a building that's clean and healthy in its construction. There's no off-gassing materials, there's no toxic paints and glues and all the other stuff. The wood in these buildings is all from sustainable forestry practices and things like that. So that's kind of the attitude that Calabasas established from day one, is that we were going to respect our environment, do everything we can to live environmentally or sustainably and practically. And this set of buildings was actually our second try. The first try was another story you're going to have to ask James about, because we had a complete civic center designed, and then the council changed, and
The architect changed?
and the two of us were the
Twice.
Remaining minority that supported the the designs that the community had approved and dealt with. But ultimately, we knew we needed a place. We couldn't rent from Amundsen, which is what we were doing, or Home Savings and Loan out on Moreau forever. And we designed and built this place in about 2.5 years. The construction was like 18 months, and it's won awards. And it's a gold leads building. If we'd gone for platinum, it would have cost us another $600,000 for no benefits. So we said, let's put the $600,000 into other benefits for the community. And we have a lovely place to work. I mean, here we are in this lovely place, meeting tonight, intimately having a good time, you know, and enjoying the company, the spirit, the attitude, and the benefits of a beautiful place like this.
So Dennis, what do you consider to be the city's most notable accomplishments during your term in office, and/or are there any where you feel your involvement made a particularly positive difference?
Big question.
You can give me more than one, because you did 20 years. You're entitled to more than one.
I've done 38 years, if you think about it. I was, in fact, looking at...
That's a pretty thick pile in there.
I'm just going to show one. This is the Greater Mulwood Homeowner Association newsletter, you know, from, I don't want to say, like 1985, and it showed all of the development that was, you know, pressuring the community of Mulwood. The Mulholland Highway, as it goes in front of Calabasas High School, was slated by LA County Road Department before we were incorporated to become a 4-lane median strip highway. They were going to put a 55-mile-an-hour curve in front of Calabasas High School. That's using the old kidney. And they were going to widen Mulholland Highway all the way to Leo Carrillo Beach. And they were going to fill the Santa Monica Mountains with housing and commercial development and industry and everything else, instead of having all the lovely views and open space. And I mean, now what, 43% of Calabasas 14 square miles is now open space and public serving use. Nobody has that, capacity, to actually preserve their community. So my best thing was incorporating the city, setting a tone that said we're going to protect our natural resources, our view sheds, and more importantly, we're going to build and protect our budgeting power as well. We're going to make as much money as we possibly can with every possible method of creativity that we could deal with. The street signs, all those lovely street signs in the city of Calabasas, they were paid for by the federal government. And now the ambulance drivers can read the street signs at night because the lights light them up. Robert Yalda, one of our staff members, got a huge grant to do that. And the leftover from that money, he put space-age ceramic address plates on every address in Calabasas. Again, paid for by the federal government.
Ellen?
How cool is that?
Your most significant achievement or contribution that you remember? Library? Karen?
Just your wild
Yes. Bringing in a sense of community, bring in the parks, the recreation, the cultural events. We had a theatrical group. We had the Calabasas Players. We had the Calabasas Orchestra. We have guest speakers even today here in our library from the literary field, and the written word is art unto itself. I still have my authors program where I interview local authors every month. And we have our art in public places where we have just put up an obelisk on Park Sorrento for the Avanti project. We're putting up a magnificent metal sculpture at the Civic Plaza the end of June, the weekend of the senior center opening. We've become one community. A closeness of the community and a closeness, and the culture has been elevated from a lot of citizen participation to a higher level of professional things being offered, like the concerts around the lake and some of the programs that's been offered here at City Hall, the plays, the theatrical. And I'm very proud of that because it's been my life. It's what I studied in college. My parents never thought, how can she earn a living studying culture and recreation in parks? Well, I did. And not only did I earn the living, I gained a great deal of love and appreciation and pride that I could have been a part of it here in our own city. I love the city.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask kind of a fun little question, and you guys have told me a few things that hopefully won't get on the air, but give me one of your unwidely known Calabasas trivia stories, keeping in mind the appropriateness of the audience that you're being televised?
Don't look at me. I absolutely won't, even though I know everything. Even when I wasn't on the council, it always filtered back to me stories that would make your hair curl. But I'm going to save all that.
Oh.
You want to take me out for a drink one night? All you need to do
Give us one, Karen.
is give me a half a glass of sangria or a half a glass of a champagne cocktail, and I'm out. And I won't be able to keep my mouth shut.
You don't have one?
Pardon me?
You don't have one for us?
None that I will embarrass anybody
Ellen?
by repeating.
Yes, I have a story. The county owned Gates Canyon Park, which is now Brandon's Village off of Thousand Oaks Boulevard. And the county was strapped for cash and said that they would permit the city to lease Gates Canyon Park for $1 a year if we pledged to cut the grass. And so we cut the grass and had the park for a year. And then the county was still strapped for cash, and we asked if we could buy it for $1. And yes, indeed, we bought it for $1. And we then had Gates Canyon Park, and at that time I was a double commissioner because the city was not as big as it is now, that's in quotes, and they didn't have enough commissioners to fill all the positions. I was on Parks and Rec and the Library Commission. As a Parks and Rec commissioner, I decided I needed to see the paucity of parks that we had in the city, and I went to Gates Canyon, and I discovered that even though it was close to the fire station, this will tell you how long ago it was, there was no payphone there. And I came back to the commission and I said, we have got to have a payphone there because if somebody falls and gets hurt, no cell phones, of course, we've got to have a phone there. And that's how we got a payphone at Gates Canyon Park before it became Brandon's Village.
Dennis?
I want to take the fifth.
How about the room, the hotel room that we shared together once?
Well,
With whom?
James and I are both very active and still in the activities of municipalities and counties around the nation, for that matter. And one of our annual treks was to go to the California Contract Cities Association in usually Palm Springs or Indian Wells or Palm Desert or something like that. And you're there to exchange ideas and contacts. In fact, that's where Karen and I convinced these folks of the county library system to give us the bookmobile. And that's where we learned how much we were being diddled out of our money as well. But we got the library in place. So I'm down there late because I was working in the advertising business and I had a presentation that day. I came to a 3-day conference the night of the first day, 2 in the morning. I had driven from LA to this event and schlepped my bags into the hotel and got my room assignment and took the bags up to the room and I pounded on the door with my key, essentially just trying to get it in. And someone comes to the door. I thought he was going to come with a shotgun.
He almost did.
And it turns out that James had already got the room. So he was in his skivvies in the room, and this starts to look a little questionable, I got to tell you. But at the same time, I said, I think we've been double booked here.
Well, actually, you forgot the important part is we weren't supposed to stay together. So I thought someone was, I put the chain on the thing and I was asleep. I thought someone was trying to break in the room. We were staying in a pretty rundown hotel, by the way, because we had missed out on the nice one. Anyways, but Dennis almost didn't serve 20 years on the council. But
I'm a little tall.
he always adds in the skivvies part, like, okay, Dennis, it was hot. You know what
I
he
have a question for Dennis. Was that the same time that we saw you dancing in a cage at the disco, the same city, the same Palm Springs event?
That's when disco was still popular.
What are a few of the more significant changes you've seen to Calabasas in the last 25 years?
Well, the amount of participation of the community members just look at our elections. They've been robust. We haven't ever had a 52% voter turnout since 1991, but we do better than the average bear. And the good people come out, good people work for that, and good people are committed to making sure there's vibrancy, creativity, and accountability. So the election process in Calabasas, I think, as I say, it's better than most, and it ensures the engagement of the community.
Ellen, last 25 years?
The last 25 years, that's a tough one. We've multiplied the number of parks we have, which has been great. We still are underserved for the amount of people in the community and the ratio that they give to cities as far as parks. But the development of the trail behind where the senior center is will be a nice addition. I don't know what else to add to that, except that we have an exceptional staff that serves us very well. The commissioners that we have do a superb job within each of their areas, so that if any council members have questions, they can ask any of the commissioners, because the council members can't know everything about everything that's going on in the city.
I don't know about that.
And that's why we set up the commission system, except for you, James.
He's looking for dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right,
you are?
I'm going to turn to Karen. Do you have anything for me in the 25 years? There's the infrastructure of the city's grown. Technology has definitely changed the way we operate. Cell phones, email is great. At midnight I can get on email and
We're on
deal with
TV now.
Well,
Our own
Yeah.
television
I
station.
thought it was
working
my
with constituents.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, you finish and then I'll go.
No, dealing with constituents by email has changed the quickness with which you can get back to people, the information that can be processed, having our beautiful website and our CTV. All of that's changed tremendously. But what are some of the most significant things you've seen in the last 25 years?
There's one bad, not so good rather, and one to me is good that others may differ on my opinion. When we voted for cityhood and for the council, we also elected by the public vote to choose the council people at large or by district. We voted at large so that we would consider ourselves one community with common goals and common interests. As the city has grown in number and in size, I sense a lot of people consider us versus them, or this neighborhood versus that neighborhood, and some of the togetherness and some sharing common goals for the betterment of the whole has been lost with NIMBYism. You can have this development in your backyard, but not where I live. I don't want it, even though the revenue would be good, or even though a benefit would be for everybody. And I would not be surprised that if in future elections, someone would not put on the ballot or have put on the ballot to change the voting from at-large to district. And I would not like to see that. I think it would impact negatively upon the community. The other thing that I've been delighted to see, having moved in when everyone was older, probably my age. Oh, they were old and they played golf and they didn't have kids and I did. Now I see over the last years, the school district and the beauty of our community and the safety has brought in young families. And I see with young families a diversity in their culture, in their color, in their language, and in their interests, and I am thrilled. It's the way of the world. And we're becoming part of the new world, whether people enjoy that or not. I think it's a beautiful thing. It's a rainbow of people, a rainbow of diversity. We're all the same inside of us. We only are a little different on the outside in some people's eyes.
I would like to see no more development, and I think we have little enough land left so that we can keep that under control. I would like the populace to be a little better informed as far as how much money it costs to run a city, and realize that sometimes, excuse me, when the council is making a decision about putting a hotel someplace, it's not because they want a plethora of hotels as much as we need income in order to run the city. I think that's very important.
Dennis?
I think that if you think about Calabasas and any city that you live in as a city-state, pretty much like you would see in Venice or in Rome or Athens, where you literally are an enclosed area, essentially, in a larger sea of communities. If we can maintain our identity and at the same time identify those things that are going to make sure that we are economically and econometrically prosperous over the next 25 years, I will feel that we've launched ourselves on the right pathway. Because you get what you pay for, and you need to look for those things that will help you pay for the things that you need and then the things that you want. We didn't need this public library, but it was a critical part of our vision of what the community should have. I'd like to make sure this runs forever, and that's going to take a lot of money. We're right now dealing with issues of increasing costs, decreasing staff, and so many other things that, if you think about it, we need to plan for that 25-year horizon and say, here's what I need, here's what I want, here's how I'm going to pay for it, here's who I can get to help me do that, and here are the choices that we have to make. So if we can continue to elect good political leaders and have good volunteers, they'll make good choices and they'll recognize that it is a city-state. We can't count on anybody outside of this place to do anything. I can't do anything to influence what the president is going to do or what the governor is going to do. But I can say, with my pals here in this room and all the people in Calabasas like it, we can work together to make sure that we'll take care of ourselves. We take care of our own.
Karen? Next 25 years, tell me where you'd like the city to be. A couple areas?
I would like to see more development, but sensible development. You can't stop someone who owns a piece of property from putting it to a high and good use, but it should conform with the guidelines, with the city plan, with specific plans. It should complement COMPLE, should go along with the terrain, along with the neighborhood, and be beautiful. The homes are, the hills are. Why couldn't a development put the same care in their exterior as they will with their interior and the services they provide? It's got to complement Calabasas. It's got to be what we would like to have, as you say, and what we need. When people complain, I say, well, what would you like to see omitted? What service would you like to have canceled? What staff member is superfluous? What would you like to have ended? And they can't think of a thing because they want everything that the city now offers them. And we have an excellent staff, superior staff, and we want to be able to keep them. We don't want secondary caliber, somebody that the pay is so low that we don't get the top person for the job and we can't keep them. But every time we lose somebody, we lose a lot of what goes on in the city. So I'd like to keep our expectations high and make sure we plan for keeping it funded correctly. We don't build something we can't support. We don't have something that we expect to get for free. Nothing in life is free.